Hello and welcome to another episode of the Grow My Salon Business Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Whitaker, and as always, it's great to have you here with us today. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening as you walk the dog or driving the car or running on the treadmill or whatever it is you might be doing, I just want to start by saying thank you for being a listener. Our podcast is growing and we need your help to continue growing because we want to get to help as many other people as possible, and you are our only marketing budget. So if you're watching on YouTube, then give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel and share it with your friends. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast app, then give us a 5-star review and a follow, and that would be very kind of you and much appreciated. So with all that said, on with today's episode. I often say that opening a business gives you a great education, and not just in the skills needed with management and finance and marketing, but also the understanding and insights that come with the responsibility of employing people, training them, and coaching them to become the best version possible of themselves. So on today's episode, I'm talking with a returning guest, salon owner and now author, Martha Lynn Kale of the Mirror Salon in Austin, Texas, who has written a book about getting the most out of beauty school and the early years of your career. So in today's podcast, we're going to discuss Martha Lynn's book titled The Ambitious Stylist and why hand in hand with freedom, flexibility and autonomy comes personal responsibility, accountability and owning the outcome, and advice that she has on building a clientele and developing your own personal brand, and lots more. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Martha Lynn Kale.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
It's great to have you back. You're turning into a super regular. I think we've only got 2 people that have been here as many times as you now. So this is our third episode. The first episode was way back in December 2019. That was episode 21. And then we did another episode at the beginning of this year, which was episode 232 in February. And I remember saying in that episode, we talked a little bit about the book you were writing. And I said, we must get you back on when that book is, out and proud, so to speak. And it is. So that's why I wanted you to come back on today so we can talk all about your book. Now, let me sort of introduce that a little bit and then we can jump straight in. We happen to be talking about beauty school, which is a uniquely American experience. And a lot of our audience are not in the United States. They're spread around the world in different countries. So I just wanted to sort of introduce this by saying that you're not really specifically talking just about beauty school. You're talking about at the beginning of your career, whether it's in an apprenticeship or whatever that format is, because I've read your book and we've talked a lot about it and stuff. And I think that the things that you talk about are relevant regardless of what stage of your career you're at. In fact, it's very much even just for, new stylists. And, one of the things I wanted to say was that for me, when I read the book, that one of the sort of underlying themes that runs right through it was all about taking responsibility for your future, about being proactive, about growth and about your own personal development and not waiting for someone else to do it for you. And I just wanted to say that at the beginning, because I think today that a lot of people talk incessantly about wanting freedom and about wanting control and about wanting flexibility. And I think that's all very good. But often what they don't address with that is that with freedom and flexibility and autonomy, etc., comes responsibility. Responsibility, ownership for your own career. So listen, I need to stop talking because I wanted to get you on to talk all about all that stuff. But I really just wanted to sort of paraphrase the rest of our conversation around that. So you've written this book, I've read it, and I know it's only just come out. Let me just ask you straight off the bat, what inspired you to write a book?
Honestly, I do a lot of interviews, as the owner of a large salon. And, I think we checked and we're, well over 600 interviews at this point.
Wow.
And so, what I was noticing is that, mostly new talent, but really throughout, You don't see people coming very well prepared for an interview. The resume, has typos, and they're not asking questions at the end of the interview. And that was really, what inspired me to write it. Plus, I'm sort of a cheerleader and a mentor at heart. And so, I wanted to give students or, new to the industry stylists something that they can have as a tool and to lean on as a little bit of a guidebook.
Got it. Okay. And that's important. What you've just addressed is that, a lot of kids at the beginning, they leave secondary school in some shape or
Right.
form, and they either go to a beauty school or do an apprenticeship or whatever. And a lot of them are very young and they haven't had any sort of worldly experience and don't necessarily know how to do those things. And I suppose, from your perspective, having been a beauty school graduate,
Mm-hmm.
and you were also slightly older when you went through beauty school, weren't you? And you had a bit of a previous
Right.
career in another, in marketing and advertising, etc. So maybe you sort of came to the whole school thing with expectations which were different to the average person.
Yeah, definitely. I went to college and worked in marketing and advertising for a little while before I decided to enroll in cosmetology school. And, I think that anytime you're starting something completely new than what you've done, you have an expectation, and sometimes it delivers on the expectation. Sometimes it's completely different. Sometimes that's good. It could be bad, but regardless, it was very different. And so it sort of threw me into this new world. And, in our industry, all we know about it before we enter the industry as the workforce is what we've experienced as a client. And so, you have in your mind this glamorous, creative career. And what happens when you're either starting an apprenticeship or enrolling in cosmetology school is you're starting to see sort of behind the curtain of the industry. And what's most important is that you get placed in that right salon, doing that right apprenticeship with the right mentor to really get you off on the right foot so that you can be set up for success.
Right. Okay. Um, Talk to us about your beauty school experience, because everyone has their own unique experience. Some obvious,
Right.
I mean, beauty schools I think are like salons. You have good ones, you have not so good ones,
Sure.
and they sort of influence how you feel about the industry and etc. So just give us a sort of overview of what your experience was and how that influenced you, as you've gone on, and indeed influenced you in terms of what you've written in the book.
Yeah, I was really lucky. I went to a school that was, generationally owned. It was a private school. It wasn't, one of the bigger, named schools. And so, going to enroll in a school with owners that are so passionate about the industry and are so passionate about students, that was really what drew me to that school in particular. And they're still around. They've been around for generations. I can't imagine they're going anywhere anytime soon. But that's really what drew me into that school in particular, and it just being a smaller cosmetology school.
Right. Okay. What's the key message that you want people to take away from having read the book? In fact, let me also sort of double that question up: is who is the target audience for the book, and what is it that you want them to take away from reading it?
Yeah, and it's called the Ambitious Stylist. So the target is really, someone that has ambition and wants something more for their lives. And ambition is very, it can often get grouped into terms like, hustle and all of that. And that's really not what ambition is at all. It's knowing what you want for your future and being willing to go out and get it. And to me, it's more of, a marathon. It's the long game. And sometimes that's seasons of really hard work where you are hustling a little bit, and
Mm.
sometimes it's having the self-awareness to know this might be a time that we're taking our foot off the gas because we have other things going on in our life, but our eye is still on the big prize. What I want people to take away from the book is to feel incredibly empowered, that they have all of the knowledge that they need to go out and not only identify what their perfect salon is, but get a job at that salon.
Okay,
And
so
that's for anyone. You don't have to be just coming out of cosmetology school to need
mm,
to identify the right salon you're in and go get a job at that salon. There's many people that have wound up in the wrong salon, and that's really what I want to prevent, because I think that is where we do lose people out of our industry, because, they're frustrated because it's not a right fit. And then they just give up. And so what we don't want is people spending a ton of money on cosmetology school, hopping into whatever salon gets their attention. It's not a fit for them, even though it may be a great salon. And now they're like, I quit. And
mm,
so, we need more stylists in our industry. That we know. And we need more ambitious stylists in our industry. And so this is really me going all the way back to the very beginning of stylist careers and saying, okay, what can we do to give new stylists a really great, well-rounded start, so that they can, to your point, take a ton of ownership over their career, regardless of where they go, and be in the driver's seat of their career.
yeah, I've got that song going on in my head, beauty school dropout. You
Exactly.
know,
Exactly.
I think that song actually, the stereotype, whether we like it or not, okay, there is a stereotype in our industry pretty much the world over, okay, that is a negative stereotype. But
Right.
unfortunately, I think we also have to be honest and go,
Right.
there is some truth to that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of people that are drawn to beauty school, perhaps for all the wrong reasons, and
Right.
and it's a hard line to tread this, because there is an element of truth to that. I'm sure in your beauty school, when you were there, that was perhaps part of your frustration. That maybe there were some other people
Right.
there that were unmotivated to, you were late into the career, so you went into it
Right.
passionate. You quit a well-paying job, you went back to school, you were in a on a professional fast track in advertising and marketing, and then going into beauty school with maybe some other kids who weren't so motivated, etc., because they hadn't had the life experiences and perhaps the opportunities that you've had. And so there's a part of you that wants to go, listen guys, we're here for a year,
Right.
so roll up your sleeves. Let's really make this work. Take some responsibility for how successful you are. Is that?
Yes.
Am I doing justice to how you're coming from
Yeah,
with that?
definitely. And I think there are, I wouldn't even say a lot, but in any school, there's going to be a handful of students that are just there because they didn't want to go to whatever other trade school, or they didn't want to go to college, or, I don't know. They're just there because they're
Yeah,
not there because they're super passionate about the industry and the end game and what's on the other side of cosmetology school. And so, there is a huge stigma around our industry still. And, at the beginning of the book, I share a lot of different stories from different stylists sharing their whys. And, many of them said, I went to college because I had to, because my parents wanted me to go to college, And so, I also want to change the stigma around the industry. And one of the ways we can do that is to continue to elevate it, and putting, better qualified students and new apprentices into the workforce is the first step to that.
yeah, I agree with that. I think ultimately we have to own that stigma about the industry to whatever degree and go, do you know
Right.
what? We're not all like that. And let's show the world how it can be. But regardless of what you do, there's always going to be some good beauty schools and some not so good beauty schools. There's going to be some good teachers in beauty school, and there's going to be some other people that are just going through the motions. And I think that applies to, any industry or even any business. Can you give us a brief overview of the key topics that you cover in the book?
Yeah, it's broken up into 3 sections. So the first section is really around the classroom. It's helping you develop your why, really crystallizing why you're wanting to enter this industry anyway, which is important for anyone entering any industry,
Yeah.
And then it's also shares some study tips, because there's a lot of really terrible statistics around passing that written portion of the practical that we have to take here.
Yeah.
And so, if we're losing people because they don't have the study skills, then that's not good. So that's kind of classroom time. Part 2 is really focused on building a clientele. And in that section is really the section that I get the most excited about, because we have to always be building a clientele as hairstylists. And so it gives a lot of tools around personal branding and networking and how social media plays a role within all of that to build a clientele, and that you need to start while you're in school. I think that is also a challenge, is a lot of students are sort of punching the clock saying, I'm going to do that when I get out. I'll be on time when I'm out. I'll dress nice when I'm out. But you have to start forming those disciplines while you're in school, and you're really set yourself up for success. And then finally, part 3 is really about helping people not only identify the right salon that they should be at, but how to go and get a job at that salon, and resume tips, and a very specific outline for exactly what you should be doing 1 week and 1 month and 1 day before the big interview at the salon.
Yeah, I really liked some of those very practical sort of tips like that. And as you said at the beginning, you've probably interviewed 600 plus people. So you see a lot of the inadequacies that people have because they're just not prepared. Maybe oftentimes they simply don't know. Do you know what I mean? They haven't, like beauty school. I mean, I know in the United States, for example, that the length of time at beauty school is different in different states, and there is a move to reduce the amount of hours at beauty school. And within those hours, I know that there's very much a curriculum that they have to cover by law. And so it doesn't always leave room for some of the things that, that we're talking about now, that, just teaching people interview skills and stuff like that. I don't know enough about what goes on inside of beauty schools and what their curriculum is to know whether or not they address those things. But they're really important things, aren't they? Once you get out into the real world, you need some practical, personal skills. And I'd be intrigued by your insight on this. Is it worse or better with the youngest generation? And I'm thinking of that in the context of, because they're so used to being on their phone,
right,
and they're so used to texting people, they're not necessarily as good at looking someone in the eye and having one-to-one sort of personal conversations and being, charming and personable, etc. What are your thoughts about that? What have you noticed from being in the front line with that?
Yeah, it's a big deal, and I think that regardless of social media and influencers, and, there's a lot you can do with social media to further your career, but there's nothing you can take away from the fact that this is a face-to-face job that you're signing up for, and you have to be comfortable talking to people face-to-face. I had a conversation with one of our apprentices recently, and we were talking about building a clientele and finding clients, and they always go straight to, well, I need to post more, or I left business cards at my gym, or whatever it is. But that's not really building the muscle of getting comfortable talking to people face to face, and that is what we're really having to retrain in this new generation of hairstylists.
What are some practical tips in the book that you offer to beauty school students to, manage their time effectively and get the most out of their time at school?
I mean, number one is to get off of social media. I think that we spend so much time just scrolling and liking and commenting and whatever it is, but we have to, if we will step back and get off of our phones, we will be more productive and, get into the habit of doing, business building activities. If you get invited to a birthday party, the answer needs to be yes, because you might have an opportunity to meet someone new. We have the coolest job in the world, if you ask me. And it always comes up, what do you do? And as soon as you say, I'm a hairstylist, now you're doing a consultation in the bar, and that's a new client. And so, just getting comfortable talking to people face to face is important. And the more you can practice that, you can even do that just, with your fellow students. Get off your phones, and go talk to one another and practice getting to know a stranger, because that is a muscle that has to be built. And when you're not used to that, it can be very uncomfortable.
Have you ever had anyone rock up for an interview that's absolutely blown you away to the point of where you've thought, this is, you know, this is what everyone should be like in terms of the way they look, in terms of their presentation, personality, charisma, eye contact? Have you got anybody like that that
Yes,
that you
I
can
have
think of?
three of them. And they're all three work for me currently still.
Right,
Um,
fantastic.
but they were, they're very much what was top of mind when I was writing this book, and but what I often would think about was who did we not hire because of the way they presented themselves in an interview or on social media. That's all we have as someone that's interviewing someone. Is That's the most immediate. I have your resume, I have your application, how you come into the interview, and what you're presenting online. That I have to develop. Am I going to give this person a chance based on those things? And it's so rare that someone knocks it out of the park in all of those categories. That's why I wanted to write the book, because I hate the thought of I might have missed out on this perfect applicant because they just didn't know what they didn't know. And, I think that we take some of this knowledge for granted, especially those of us that have been around a little bit longer. And
Mm.
so we forget that we were, going out for that first interview at some point. I was really lucky. My mom, was very professional and always was teaching me those types of skills. And so I was well equipped coming out of college and then out of cosmetology school to find the right job that I wanted. And, that is not something that everyone has. Everyone doesn't have that kind of mentor that can show them the way.
Yeah, that is a really important, point to bring up because, some people come from a good family and they go on holiday with the family and they stay in nice places and they go to nice restaurants and they fly on aeroplanes, etc. And they sort of subliminally all their life are learning life skills,
Right.
which are really important to then carry through into an industry such as the hairdressing industry. And it is important to recognize that not everybody necessarily has those skills. I can talk from personal experiences that perhaps I didn't at the beginning. And, what you've just said, it's like you hate the thought of who did I miss because they were a
Mm-hmm.
diamond in the rough, so to speak. And,
Right.
you just thought they're never going to cut it. But with basically education and with presenting opportunities and showing them life experiences, a lot of those people can succeed. So in your salon with young graduates that are coming out of beauty school, spending some time in your salon on the floor, in an apprenticeship format to whatever degree, what are some of the tips for our listeners that you give to people about these are some things that you should be doing if you really want to build and develop a clientele once you get into the salon that you want to work in?
Yeah, I think I have always believed that you can really use blowouts as the gateway. It's such a low stakes way to, invite a client in. If they don't like it, they go home and wet it. It's no big deal. Hopefully they love
Mm.
it. But, everyone loves getting their hair blown out. That's like such a gift. And I think you can offer that gift to people. I encourage people to invite people to do them complimentary. Here at cosmetology school, it's usually fairly inexpensive. But we train a lot at Mirror Mirror on what to do once you've done that complimentary blowout. You don't want just a revolving door of people coming in for free services. You want to
Mm.
use that as the gateway to then begin talking to them about their color, begin talking to them about their cut, what products are they using. By the time they're leaving, they're hopefully loving their hair, loving what products you use, excited to book a color and a cut, and you've got a new client at that point. But that is really underutilized. I think that people are so excited to do the color and the cut or the extensions or the big service they want to provide, but they're forgetting that that is such a amazing gift to give a client and a great tool to show off your skills. Because if you can do a great blowout, you've earned their trust, and trust is the first step in building a great relationship with your next clientele. And so, I think that the flip side of that is if you don't do a good blowout, you need to get good at doing a really great blowout and
Mm.
make sure that you're doing the kind of blowout that your client wants. You may be looking at them thinking, "Ooh, I can't wait to smooth out that frizz," but really they want, big volume. And so it's still, you need to use the opportunity to practice your consultation skills and saying, tell me what does your hair not do that you wish it did? That will give you so much insight into how
Mm.
you can start solving problems for clients, which ultimately we are problem solvers. And that's how you're going to retain the clientele that you're inviting in for these complimentary services. Additionally, I think that blowouts are a great way to fill gaps in your books. So when you're building, rather than block yourself off or go sit in the break room or scroll on Instagram, we always say that busy gets busy. And so if
Mm.
you can stay in action, you start to build that momentum and you start to feel what it feels like to be busy. And then ultimately, those clients are then turning into paying clients, and now your practice busy is real busy. And so there's so much you can do with a blowout, and I think that getting really good at it is important.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting as you're talking. I'm thinking, over the years in my career, my first boss was not a good hairdresser. He is no longer with us, but he wouldn't mind me saying that. He was not a good hairdresser, but he was Mr. Personality. He was absolutely so busy all the time. I mean, this is when I
Mm-hmm.
very first started my apprenticeship, very long time ago. And he was just such a great example of the personality, the charisma, the charm. Um, but what I wanted to ask you about was in the book, how much do you address communication skills and mindset? Because both of those things, they sort of underpin really everything that you're talking about at the moment. That if you have the right mindset and you go out of your way to talk to people, to introduce yourself, to offer your services and stuff, that is how you grow. But a lot of people, they're very hesitant to do that. So I'm sort of curious about how much do you address that in the book?
Yeah, mindset is really important, and I think that goes along with the personal branding. I think that the look good, feel good is real. And I think
Mm,
that when you present yourself in a way that is going to attract people, if you're going around town with your hair messed up and you know in your pajamas, essentially, that's not going to attract the type of clientele that you probably want in your chair.
yeah.
And so you are a billboard, and you are representing what you can do, and people, right or wrong, will judge you based on what you're presenting out in public and in the salon. And so there are just certain people that you see and they're oh my gosh, they're so cute, or they're so pulled together, or I love his outfit, that you would immediately sit in their chair knowing nothing about their skill set, because you're assuming, right or wrong, that they've got it pulled together, that they're exuding confidence. And I think that confidence is something that's so important even early on, that you are taking ownership of the time with your client, because I think often when we're brand new, we're still so nervous, and the clients, if they can sniff out those nerves or that you don't know what you're doing, they're going
Mm,
to be on edge right off the bat, and it's going to be hard to recover from that. And so you can be honest still, if you feel like you're in too deep, or I'm not comfortable with that haircut, I'd love to get you paired with someone that would be better, because we ultimately want the client happy. But you have to have confidence. And whether you have 1,000 hours or 2 years of an apprenticeship, or whatever your qualifications are, you have that many more hours or years or months of qualifications better than your client. And so you need to own that
mm.
you are the professional and you are in charge, and you probably know more than you even think you do.
Yeah, yeah. That sort of makes me think about the segue that a lot of young hairdressers make. Unfortunately, a lot of them now are thinking that they can leave beauty school and go straight into a rental environment, either by themselves in a salon suite or just, renting a chair in a salon. What are your thoughts about that? Do you talk about that in the book? What are the advantages and disadvantages of that as being part of your journey? Because it is a thing and it's not going to go
Yeah.
away. But I think people jumping into it too soon underestimate what it actually takes at lots of different levels. So tell me about how you address that.
Yeah, I do talk about that in the book, and it is really important to me. I even, I rented a chair while I was planning opening Mirror Mirror. So, I think that there is a place for salon suites and for rentals for stylists. I think it's very specific, and I think actually people go through phases where maybe that's appealing, and then maybe then it's not, or whatever. That's the nice thing about our industry is you can change at any time.
Mm,
But when you're starting out, you need to find a mentor that will invest their time and energy in teaching you how to be an excellent hairdresser. And, even the best, most ambitious student or new talent is not ready on day one to be completely on their own. When you are on your own, there's so much that goes into running your business, the taxes and all of the things that go with a rental that you don't have the mental capacity to take on at that stage. You need to be focused on what we talked about, getting comfortable talking to clients, building that clientele, getting really good at your skills. And the beginning of your career is not the time to throw that also on your plate. You're going to make it harder on yourself.
mm.
Now, does that mean someone hasn't done it and wasn't successful? Of course, there's always exceptions to the rule, but it's going to be very hard.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
even a lot of these influencers that people follow now, these salon influencers that have huge followings, and they've got their suite set up with the ring lights and all of that. I think a lot of times we're looking at them going, I want to be that. And you can be that, but you probably can't be that on day one. And so that's why I included a lot of these big name hairstylists to contribute to the book, because I want people to understand that even they started out with either a really great apprenticeship or with a really great mentor. And even if that's where you see yourself, go find someone that is in a suite or a rental or independent that you really look up to and see if they want, some help. It's harder because then you're not going to have somewhere to grow into, but they do take on apprentices to work with them, and you can learn more about that side of the business, but you still need to learn from someone right out the gates.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. What's the number one bit of advice that you would give to someone who was going to start in beauty school or an apprenticeship? And when you say apprenticeship, like for your salon, do you mean that they didn't go to beauty school at all, or that they do an apprenticeship as well as having done beauty school, and it's sort of like the apprenticeship is like a finishing school type of thing?
Yeah, it's like your master's here.
Right. Okay.
You have to have a license here in America, so you have to have gone through cosmetology school, and so an apprenticeship is really building upon what you've already learned in school. But our expectations are really low.
Yeah.
We're hiring for culture and for personality fit and for ambition. And if you have all of those things and you're a fit for us, then we can teach you the rest. We just need those things to check off. So I think that people are so in school, they're so focused on the technical side,
Mm.
but it's the other stuff that you need to make sure that you get right, which we do cover off on in the book. And that's going to set you up for success, because if you're going into a great apprentice program, be it with one-to-one with an independent stylist or a salon that offers a huge, more structured program, they're going to teach you the skills, and you can learn that and practice that with repetition. But it's the other stuff that you really need to get right, getting comfortable talking to people and building a clientele early on.
Mm. Right. Okay. And you may have answered that, but I'm just going to come back at it from a different angle. What's the one bit of advice you'd give to someone who's about to start beauty school, because they have to do it
Yeah.
to get the most out of it. Like what?
To get
Yeah.
the most out of it, you have to go. And that sounds very simple,
Mm,
but it's clock in hours. So, right now it's, if it's 1,000 or 1,500 hours, like
mm,
the way you're going to get from 1 hour to 1,500 hours is by doing the work and showing up. And often, we get in that slump midway where we're like, oh, I'm tired. I've been doing school and I've been working part time and I got a family or whatever it is.
mm.
And it's tempting to want to sleep in or skip a day.
Yeah.
And that day or that hour is just getting tacked onto the end, and it's just prolonging you from getting to the reason that you started in the first place. And
Mm,
so at the most basic level, you have to show up. And so this book is going to tell you exactly what to do on a slow day or a day you don't want to show up, because it's going to help you keep putting one foot in front of the other.
yeah.
The other bit of advice is you have got to build a clientele.
Mm,
That's the marker. Demand is our report card in this industry, whether you've been in for 10 minutes or 10 years. And so you have got to figure out how to build your own clientele immediately. And that is the bit of advice I would give, because I think a lot of times people think, well, I'm just going to get my license and I'm going to go work in a salon, and then they're going to put clients in my chair,
yeah.
and that's how I'm going to make a living.
Yeah.
And that is not the answer. Even
Yeah.
in a very in-demand salon,
Yeah.
you have to build it for yourself.
Yeah. That's good. When you've got a new one starting with you as a stylist, they've come straight out of beauty school and they've started with you as an apprentice or whatever it's going to be. What do you say to them? What's the one bit of advice you give to them about, right, you've done beauty school and now you've got the job that you wanted, you're in here. If you really want this to work, the number one thing you need to focus on is finish the sentence.
I think it is really, it's similar. It's showing up, it's being 100% every
Mm,
single day, because our clients don't know that yesterday we looked cute and had a good attitude,
yeah.
and today we're sleepy and look like crap.
Yeah.
And so, it's treating every single day like you're on stage. And I think that is what I want stylists to, understand when they come here. Again, we appreciate what you've learned from school. We appreciate whatever you're bringing to the table, but we're now starting from scratch,
Mm,
and we're building you as the hairstylist that you're going to be. But you have to show up and give 115%, and we will match that energy.
okay. Last thing is, I know there's a lot of politics involved in this as well in the US. There's a lot of money involved in the cosmetology school business, and there's a lot of politics and stuff involved in it as well, which I'm not qualified to talk about. And it's different from different states in terms of the amount of hours that people have to do. I think I know there's at least one state where I think California now. I might be wrong, it was 15 or 1600 hours. Now it's been reduced to 1,000 hours, but that's hair and skin and nails. And if you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do hair only, it's now down to, I believe I'm correct in saying 600 hours, which isn't very long. And I
Right.
know that that's California, but it is different in other states. What I wanted to ask you about was, what do you see as being the sort of future of the school business as to how it evolves, and in terms of what role does the school of the future play um, in developing the industry? Where do you see them in 5 years time?
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, the school and the salon environments would be closer to the same. Right now, it's educational. You're learning. They're focused on making sure you can pass those state boards, which all of that is really important. But you know, you're not getting that feeling of a real salon environment, and I think that would be the $1 million answer, is if schools could create that environment. And I think that they do, and they want to. And I
Mm,
think that we're really lucky that we have a lot of administrators and a lot of schools out there that are so passionate about students, because it is tough. It is a
yeah.
tough gig. And again, not every student is excited to be there, and so keeping people motivated and excited and happy while also making sure that they're passing, everything. It's a lot to juggle. And so I think that, if we're asking more of students, I think students will be ready to step up to the plate. And I think that that's going to elevate the industry. That's going to help with the stigma. And, if we want to elevate the industry and we want to be treated, as this booming business that we know that it is, we have to ask more of our students. And the people that are going to do that are our administrators in our schools. And so I think that, the students will step up to the plate if they ask more from them.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And as you're talking about that, I was thinking about, I mean, obviously you're in Texas, but if I talk to hairdressers in the UK or Australia or whatever, there will be a common theme, even though they don't necessarily have the beauty school business that you have in the US. There's always a lot of blame's the wrong word, but a lot of expectation put on the schools to deliver people that are salon ready,
Right.
and the amount of hours that you've got to do it, that's just not realistic, is it? Which is why, as you have a finishing program as an apprenticeship program. So it's all about finding that balance. So that's really interesting, your take on that. Anything else before we wrap up?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say on that note, I think that if there was a way, and I don't know if some states offer this or, I think that getting students in the salon sooner would be better, and I think that it would take some of the pressure off the schools to focus on things like color theory and cutting and, the ins and outs of that versus, right now a lot of times they cram all of that in the very beginning of the school. And then the rest of the time is just, they're giving them clients to practice on. I would rather see them go spend some of that time in a salon, preferably the one they want to go work at, where they can be earning those hours, but also starting to get that real world experience. And so I think that it would take some of the pressure off the schools if they didn't have to deliver someone 100% salon ready. If there were, things in place that would prevent someone from going on their own, because they have to prepare someone assuming that, what if they are that one person that says, I'm going to just go run a suite and I'm just going to work there on my own. So they're feeling the pressure of being the school and, the mentor and the apprenticeship and all of that, while the government's saying, hey, we'll take hours away from you. And so they're feeling like the rug got pulled out from under them. But it's too much to ask to deliver students that are fully salon ready. What they need to be is to be apprentice ready. And so then they can go on to doing a more formal apprenticeship. But that's,
Yeah, got it.
wishful thinking.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, we need to wrap up. Whereabouts can people get a copy of the book?
It's available on Amazon, and you can check out the ambitiousstylist.com if you want to see, a little bit more about the book. But the only place to buy it is either in Mirror on our shelves or through Amazon.
Right. Okay. And where can people connect with you on Instagram or any other social media channels?
Yes, I am at Martha Lynn Kale on Instagram, and you can follow the Ambitious Stylist at the Ambitious Stylist on Instagram as well. I love connecting with people through social media.
Great.
And that's the easiest way to do it.
Good. Okay. All right. Well, I'll put all those links on our website, growmysalonbusiness.com, in the show notes for today's podcast, and everywhere else that you listen to your podcast, I'll be in the show notes. So if you're listening to this podcast with Martha Lynn and you've enjoyed it, do me a favor and share it with people that you know would also enjoy it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast app. So to wrap up, Martha Lynn Kale, thank you for being on this week's episode of the Grow My Salon Business podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.